And we are live. And Formula 1 has some news. Or Alpine has some news. So let's see, we have... Let's see, how should we do it? We should have this one, and then should go there. But before we do anything there, we should go here. Here we have some news. Esteban Ogone, an Alpine of the success. So, I mean, everyone knows Esteban Ocon have done a lot of stuff before. But I really want to know, like, did this in Monaco? Was that so much damage for him? So Alpine wanted just him to leave, or is it a lot more that we have not seen? That Alpine wanted to remove him. Oh, let's see what they say. Alpine say they will announce their lineup due course with French manufacturer in talks with multiple drivers regarding cockpit for 2025. The team previously is of great interest to Alpine. The team, encouraged by his speed while continuing in at least 1 week, he's always welcome. However, they are aware he is of interest to at least 2 other teams on the grid, which is contender for race debut with the team next year. I don't think so. I actually believe Mick Schumacher or Drugovic is closer than Jack Dewan. Okay, but let's go. What I was planning to do. We did this fun stuff. Man, I thought this would not be changed. But somewhat it did. We remove you. And I would say, because Mick Schumacher is already doing stuff with Alpine, so why not bring him back? Let's see. And who would take up Esteban Ocon? I've seen some people would think Williams could maybe take him up. But I don't think Williams, like how Esteban Ocon do in a team. Like Williams want a good teammates. Like they are working together, not working against each other. So if Carlos Sainz doesn't take the Sauber out of the deal, I believe he could maybe go there. But they could also just replace Kevin Magnussen and pick Ocon. Let's move him here. Let's see. Fredrik Vesti. No. Let's see, what more could be Let's see. Leo Lawson we maybe should remove also. He will 100% be there. Is there? Oh, you fucking Drukovic. But that would be amazing. I think I believe more on Esteban Ocon than Bottas being in that team. So for 2025, Bottas will leave, Kevin Magnussen will leave, and in we get Mick Schumacher, Drugovic, Antonelli, and Oliver Behrman. Is that right? Let's see, Logan Sargent, Kevin Magnussen, Bottas. Who more? Oh, Yogan Joe. Man, this Drugby should have joined instead of Logan Sargent. It would be so amazing to see, to have seen Drugby. So I hope this can be true. So now yeah, I think I'm done. And then we will see how true this will be. I mean, this would be so amazing to see Mick Schumacher and Drugic. At least Mick Schumacher back in Formula 1 or Drugic can finally try it out. Will he be good in Formula 1? But we will see. Let's see. Let's start Minecraft. Oh shit, need to write down how many have we? We have 1,287 collected. So this stream will probably get over 1,300. Then we bring up this. So here we have P1. What is next for Esteban Ocon? And yeah, what the fuck did I... Haas is probably the most likely for him. But let's see what they have to say.
Sirens are going off in the 2025 F1 driver market, and that is because Alpine have sent
I mean, this is so randomly. I want to know more information, like, did all that in Monaco, did that do everything? Or is it so many years of they saying, like, whoever they have in the other car, Esteban Ocon can't drive nicely. He is... They are not driving for nothing, they're driving to just get points. And he still trying to ruin stuff for the team. I mean, if that... I mean, that's what I would have removed in long ago. So I wonder if that's also Alpine's thinking also.
Esteban Ocon for a home run, although it does seem like it's a mutual thing. That's what they're delivering as messaging, but it's just a little bit too convenient, isn't it, to announce this after Monaco? Lots of things to discuss. Tom Bellingham, or should I call you Tommy Bearded Bellingham? My God, we are seeing the fluff on your face come out like no tomorrow, and we love to see it.
No, we don't.
The Ocon
Fuck that.
thing is just the timing seems just too coincidental, like you say. It makes me think that is this the punishment that we all knew it was kind of going to happen anyway, and they'd almost kind of agreed to it. But normally in Formula One now, we see the teams like to sort of let their driver that they're replacing confirm their options and then make an announcement. I wonder if this is their kind of little punishment or little dig that's gone, well, actually, now we're not going to wait and we're going to announce it. Even though they're all chummy on social media, of course, they're always going to be like that, but with the admin, but I don't think it is like that in the real world.
No, I agree, and I think it's actually even more sort of intense and harsh, I would even say, on Alpine's side, what they've sort of...
What a harsh, just fuck him. Like the jokers say, you get what you deserve.
Done here. This is not... Ocon would not want to announce it at this point. It's very much, you know, what we discussed previously around Alpine and how they've put this whole consequences thing coming out now, and the messaging that's kind of being delivered here is, Ocon, you've done that. You've been fired. That's kind of what they're sort of trying to... I know that it's all mutual, blah, 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 but...
And it probably was confirming anyway, but the way they've almost like spun it so they can make it look like we've made this decision and you're gone.
And here's the consequences that we have said that you would receive. And I just think it's a bit harsh. I thought... And it more gives me the insight
my God, you care.
All was not well, even probably before Monaco, and perhaps this was all confirmed anyway, and all that sort of...
I mean, that's also some funny thing you can think about. Esteban Ocon have been for a longer time in the team, and they remove him instead of fucking Gasly. I mean, that must show something that the team don't like how Ocon do stuff.
But yeah, it's going to be fascinating now to see whether Esteban Ocon listens to any of the team orders that then come over his way, because he wasn't listening beforehand, and now Alpine have announced that.
So it will not change anything. It's like nothing have happened.
He's gone. I think we could see.
Maybe we'll do another
spicy
podcast after Canada of will Ocon be benched for Spain after he plows into.
Oh my God! Please, if he start doing that, I hope they just put in Mick Schumacher and let him cook in the car.
In turn one.
Yes.
I don't know. We'll see.
But the main crux of this podcast, and the reason we are here, is to discuss Ocon's options for 2025. Where will he go? Let's start.
Probably Haas, the only team that I believe in.
With Mercedes.
The one team. Mercedes will not want to have Ocon. They'd rather have Antonelli, that's maybe not good, but actually better teammate. And I also want him to be good, so why not teach him in the car he will in the future be in. And the ads are soon done. Three seconds, 2, 1. But yeah, I don't believe anything about he go to Mercedes or anything.
Will he go? Let's start with Mercedes.
No.
Now we have graded each of the options out of 10 as to the likelihood that we think, or individually, that we think is the possibility of him going. So Mercedes,
0.
I am going with a 4 out of 10.
It's a 0.
Of course, Esteban Ocon has ties with
He has, but Toto Wolff don't want him.
Mercedes. He has for a very long time. He's been tipped for the Mercedes seat in previous years as well.
Yeah, but the reason why George Russell got the seat and not him.
It never obviously came through. And I've given it a 4 out of 10 because I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility.
It is.
But then I also remembered that Esteban Ocon, he's a driver that very talented, very quick, but does ruffle a few feathers. Now, do Mercedes, in their time of turmoil at the moment, want to ruffle more feathers potentially between their two drivers, which would be Ocon and Russell? No. But I'm also going to say that perhaps if they don't go with Kimi Antonelli and of course Carlos Sainz seems to be now away from that Merc deal, maybe there will be an opening for Esteban Ocon if he plays nicely. So that's why I've given it a 4.
I've gone for a 1 out of 10 for Mercedes.
It's a 0.
I think the ship has sailed for the Ocon. I know a lot.
I sailed long time ago. It was like the year when he didn't get anything with Mercedes. Then I think, or more or less, when he got a seat in Alpine or Renault, then the sail was sailed.
People think that this is a great option, particularly with Kimi Antonelli waiting in the wings, and it's kind of like, oh, is he too early? And then Ocon potentially could be that nice kind of driver that they put in there. They can assess someone like Antonelli at Williams, and then they move up. But the two things there are, then you have a young driver lineup where Ocon's not going anywhere, and what would they do about it? Because and then the second option, which I think is the bigger problem, which is exactly what you said, of Mercedes are already not having the best time of things. I think they are, like we discussed in the drive ratings in the main podcast, they are kind of a shadow of the former selves.
Also, if Antonelli will one day be in Mercedes, why not make him learn the car he will be sitting in? Wouldn't that be better that he learn how the car is and maybe can have some input on how he wants to drive the car? So the car can also be made for him also.
A lot of the things they're doing at the moment is not just the car performance, but some of the decisions, and we've not seen that perfectly slick machine. But they've got two very good drivers in Lewis Hamilton and George Russell who are seemingly working together to improve the car, and there's been harmony there. The last thing they need is carnage. And I know Ocon's come out with this statement saying, like, I've got this unfair reputation of colliding with my teammates.
Yeah.
Which maybe it's unfair how extreme it's been, but I don't think he can deny, like, no one else can have a compilation video of times X has collided with their teammates like Ocon can. And it can't be a coincidence. So I don't think Mercedes are willing to take
and that I also think about Williams. They are trying to make the car good, being up in the top teams. Why would they want to have someone that would ruin for their own teammate when I'm trying to just making the car good?
That risk.
We now go to our next team, Haas. Tommy,
that's a 5.
Go first.
I have gone for a 9 out of 10 for Haas. I can see this happening.
Yeah.
Of course, Nico Hülkenberg's leaving. Kevin Magnussen. I think at the start of this year, I'd have gone that they stay with Magnussen as an experienced driver, but he is chaotic, and Esteban Ocon has a reputation but boy does Magnussen have a reputation even more extreme at the moment. So
yeah, so Esteban Ocon is actually an upgrade from Kevin Magnussen. That's somewhat sad.
If they did hire Behrman to replace Hülkenberg and they want to get rid of Magnussen, Ocon is a good replacement, I think. And Haas don't mind a bit of chaos. And Ocon is a bit of a chaotic driver. But he's
true. I mean, they have Kevin Magnussen, so Esteban Ocon will fit 100%. Or they don't get Oliver Behrman and they have Esteban Ocon and Kevin Magnussen in the same team.
Very fast driver, and Haas don't mind that. So I think Haas would be a very good fit for Ocon, and I think Haas would really like him as well. I could see it happening.
Oh, a little relationship going on. Love that. Cute. Funny enough, I've gone for an 8 out of 10 because I'm very much on that same wagon as well. That I believe that Haas might well be the best option for Ocon to get away.
I would say not the best option, the only option that most likely will happen. So you can say best option for him.
Sort of program that he's kind of been lingering around a little bit, which obviously hasn't worked out, and they've not believed in him to give him the seat at Merc. But at Haas, the car isn't that bad. The car is like similar, if not better, than the Alpine. So, especially with I guess Q3 appearances and things like that.
That would be funny. The Haas is better now, or maybe because of Hülkenberg. And then when Ocon joins the team, Alpine is now much better than Haas is. So we'll have a bad car and succeed not getting any points.
It's been the Haas is better. So
this season,
I think it's a good idea for that. I also believe that with the Ferrari ties, perhaps Ocon will smell one day a little seat in the old Scarlet car one day. You know, that would be, again, like, right, where do I go from Haas to try and get to a better seat? Because, of course, Haas, I do not believe are ever going to win the World Constructors or Drivers' Championships in that car. Behrman comes in with Ocon. That'll be a juicy lineup. It'll be a younger lineup, and it'll be an exciting...
Man, that would be sad if Oliver Behrman is always faster than Ocon. Probably not.
Exciting one, but Ocon still has that experience that you would hope he'd be able to lead the team. Our next team is Williams.
No,
I've gone for a 6 out of 10 for Williams. Now I know I said to get rid of the Merc ties. I know that Williams have a Mercedes engine, but also it might be that he just believes in Daddy Vowels. I don't know why I've just said Daddy Vowels, because I only say that on Twitch live streams.
He maybe believes in him, but why would they want to have someone like Esteban Ocon?
But James Vowels, he might sell Ocon the Dream, Ocon and Albon. That could also be nuclear, but I would be here to watch it. And did Williams genuinely want to move forward? Yes.
I want the Williams to improve, not improve.
But they need to have 2 very good drivers, not just one. Of course, Logan's going to be gone. That is...
Oh, who I picked? Drugwish. I mean, that's somewhat good.
Still delivered. Thank you very much. Take care.
Better than
And Williams, again, they're in this 5-year plan or whatever it might be. With James Vowles at the helm, could be one to believe in.
I have gone for, and I've just changed it again. I've gone for a 4 out of 10 for Williams.
What did you change it from?
Only a 3, but I was a little bit
convinced
you a little bit not out the question. But one thing I will say that we are just to like a little bit off topic, and one thing that we discussed before we started was these are really difficult to rate because the only thing that I know, and we'll do our 2025 predictions at some point, is my goodness me, this is the most chaotic, silly season ever because it really does feel like anyone could go anywhere.
Nope.
And Alpine were a team that when Hamilton announced that he was going to Ferrari and we thought everything's going to change, I would have locked in like a 9 out of 10 that Ocon and Gasly would still stay, maybe even a 10. I think that was the one driver lineup you thought, well, they're going to be locked in, it's fine. And now that's changing as well, just to add more chaos. But Williams, I don't see it's like an impossible thing. I've got my sights set on who I think would go there alongside Albon. which we'll get into maybe in the 2025 prediction thing. But even if they didn't go with that driver, they would put like an Antonelli and a young driver in to kind of assess him at Mercedes.
We now go to our next team, which is Stake, Tom Bellingham.
I have gone for...
Oh yeah, if Carlos Sainz doesn't go there, he can probably go there.
Or a 3 out of 10 for Stake. So not completely impossible. And what I was going to say is that Ocon now has the unfortunate thing where he is going to be competing with Carlos Sainz for these
Carlos Sainz is 100% much better than Esteban
spare seats, because they are getting less and less. I think there's a surprising amount of options are going now, and you would think that Formula One teams, you take money aside, Ocon is a brilliant driver. I think he is actually quite underrated and he's a very fast driver. But given the option of Carlos Sainz or Esteban Ocon with these teams, I think people, like 9 times out of 10, a lot of teams are going to choose Carlos, aren't they, because of how well he's done. But then there's part of me that thinks if Sainz is messing Stake around and taking really long with his decision, does Ocon swoop in there and go, look, I'll sign tomorrow. I need a seat. Get the pen and paper out. I'll do the job.
We shall see. I've gone for a 1 out of 10. I can't see it. Just in my mind's eye, I just don't.
Nope.
And some of this is based purely on vibes. Just pure, as you say, like that.
Going to Haas is
complete and utter mystery what is going to happen with the rest of this
most likely
driver lineup for 2025. But I just don't see it. Does Ocon fancy his chances up against Hülkenberg when it then turns to Audi? And of course, Audi will be loving their German driver, and I'm cherishing.
Oh my God, yeah, they don't want to have a teammate that are driving like Esteban Ocon.
Nico Hülkenberg and all that sort of stuff, and will he want to go up against that sort of thing? I don't know. I can't see it. I think that there are better opportunities for him to, especially at Haas, I think, to be able to take over there, be the team leader, and really sort of move forward. So I can't see the Stake option for Ocon, but we will see. And finally, no seat. How much of a probability is it that he does not have a seat for 2025? Let's not forget, he has had another time where he has not had a seat for a year in Formula One. I am going to go for...
No! Go away, Yard. Come on, be done.
Här sitter jag och är 100% förnybar kraft från Skellefteåkraft. Driver omställning av transportsektorn och sen börjar jag om igen.
Men var laddar man bilen då?
Olika ställen. Skellefteåkraft.
A 0 out of 10. It's not happening. He's going to be on the grid. I know that lots of people joke about it, or some are very serious. There are a lot of Ocon haters on social media, and I think it's very misplaced.
I believe Esteban Ocon will more likely be in Formula 1 than Bottas and Kevin Magnussen. So if they leave, he will 100% stay. If they don't leave, he will probably be one of them to get. Will not be in Formula 1.
Placed. He's a lovely, lovely bloke. But I don't.
Not for the teams or the teammates.
I think he's going to be without a seat. I think he'll slot in somewhere because he's too good of a driver to miss out. And I also don't think that there are enough young drivers and potential talent waiting in the wings to slot all of these seats.
Jo, Drugovic, Mick Schumacher, Antonelli and Oliver Behrman.
Take all these seats away from him. So I think Ocon will be on the grid somewhere in 2025, where even if it is a dustbin.
I have gone for a 4 out of 10 for this, because I initially was like, oh, it's a 1 out of 10, and had the same thinking of you, that he is far too good of a driver. He's a race winner. But I would be feeling a little bit nervous. He did say that his plans will be announced in due course. I think he said something like that. So maybe he has got something lined up. But maybe it's just the way the driver market is, that I would be sweating if I was out of a seat now, because there are a lot of seats confirmed. I know there's loads of options, but Visa Cash App's not an option because it's Red Bull. one seat at Mercedes have already said is impossible. If Haas do decide to go for something a bit different, or take like Yuki Tsunoda over or something, like there's so many options at the moment, and it does feel like Ocon, I don't think it's going to happen, which is why I've given it a 4, but I'm not saying it's completely no chance, because the seats are running out, and there's a driver that they need to accommodate in Antonelli, Ollie Behrman, and then all these seats are closing up. Sainz needs to go somewhere, and then you're running out of options, and it might be the case where, yeah, his only option is Haas, but it also might be that his only option is nothing.
I love what
One
we say
option
about Haas,
is Haas.
and we sort of over the last few years, you know, that'll
if that doesn't happen, then he's out.
be the 10th pick. Haas probably a bit higher for some drivers' choices than perhaps Williams and Stake.
Yeah, there's even rumours now that like Tsunoda might just take a punt on Haas just to get out of the Red Bull driver program because he doesn't feel like he's ever being promoted.
Yuki's going Alpine to get back to the Gasly Tsunoda loved. Oh, it's 100, but that's going to happen.
No.
Now. I can see it. Like Alpine have seen the chaos.
Mick Schumacher is already in Alpine, in the Alpine team, so why not promote him to Formula 1? And I hope that's happened. That would be so beautiful.
And the toxic relationship that's going on between
Mick
Gasly
Schumacher and
and
Gasly.
Why don't we just have the opposite? Like a harmonious little brotherly love that Tsunoda and Gasly have. I see it.
Maybe.
I don't see
Although,
it.
imagine if they fell out. Then it'd be like, Alpine, maybe it's you.
Like a heart rate. Yeah, maybe it is. Okay, well that pretty much
One
sums
more
up the
fish.
options that are logically available for Esteban Ocon. Now, if you are wondering who we believe is going to go to Alpine to fill in
Schumacher.
Ocon's slot, then we have actually rebranded our second channel, which was Wheel Knowledge, to P1 Extra, where we are going to be doing much more extra content, stuff that you love from P1, but just on another channel, some bits and bobs. We throw it up, you know, see if you love it. So yes, that chat will be over there. So go and subscribe and check it out. And
I will not
the link will
subscribe,
be in the
but-
description. And that is it. See you very soon. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.
But we need to see. Let's see. We need to go. First, we need to go there. Then we need to. Let's see. What should we search on? P1. P1 extra. Let's see.
Who could replace?
So let's see what they the rest of the video we can say. Why Tsunoda should replace Ocon at no, stop with Tsunoda.
Who could replace Ocon in 2025?
Mick Schumacher.
Okay, we've just had the news. It's out. Ocon has gone. Alpine
Hi.
are
Gone.
looking. Ocon. That's crazy.
The Ocon. Is Esteban gone?
But they are looking for obviously a replacement now. And there's only one driver I see here that actually is
Nope.
at all exciting as a
First of all, why would he wanna leave Visa Cash app or be Formula 1 team when that car is better than Alpine? I mean, if his problem is he will not get promoted to Red Bull, well, going to Alpine is not getting a promotion; it's a demotion. So why even go there then?
sort of a sideways step or an improvement for Alpine, and maybe everyone else. Well, maybe two. We'll see. You're going to argue.
Should we say it? Should we say it at the same time? Who we think would be good and who's going to go there in 3, 2, 1?
Exciting. So who do we think is going to replace Ocon?
Yeah.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Mick Schumacher.
Yuki Tsunoda. Well, there you go. Confirmed. Yuki Tsunoda is joining Alpine.
Nope.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for listening to P1 Extra. That is pretty much the video. Yuki Tsunoda. I can see it for many reasons. One, getting ousted out of VCARB because paving the way for Liam Lawson. But also, his bestie Gasly is in the other seat. Alpine are going to go from this, oh, we're on a knife's edge, it's bubbling, it's going to spill over these Ocon versus Gasly, to Gasly and Tsunoda. laughing. They'll be having a great time. No, you go through. No, you go through. That will be the harmonious relationship those two will have. And I think Alpine need it, to be honest. And Yuki has been very, very good. So it makes sense.
Yeah, what Alpine need, you're right, is a bit of wholesomeness and just a bit of positivity. And that would be a very positive lineup. Likeability, positivity. Tsunoda and Gasly together again. Tsunoda, there's talks of he feels like he's never going to be promoted, even though he's doing a very good job, which I totally agree with, and I also agree that he doesn't look like he's going to get promoted. He must see the likes of Perez not having a great season at the moment, and him not even being considered when he's driving so well, going, well, what's the point? Because if I do, it would just, I need to maybe jump and just try something. No. You know, if he went over there, beat Gasly, showed that he's improved as a driver, it would look great for him, and then the big teams would maybe start knocking. So I think I could see this definitely happening. I think it's a risk.
Or he just stay in Visa Cash Barbie from one team, keep doing good, and then Master finally Aston Martin, he can use that.
Yuki has to take.
And what do you think? Let us know in the comments. Who replaces Ocon in 2025? Thank you for watching.
Oh my god, this was so lame. Did you actually make... Oh shit. You could just said this in the other clip.
P1 extra. Bye-bye.
Fuck that. That was so boring. I thought it would be at least more interesting, but nope. What the fuck was that? Okay, nope. Okay, nothing interesting. I mean, come on, Mick Schumacher. He's already in the team. Why not promote him to F1? And we have some fun stuff. The race have done some videos on Mercedes that I wanna watch. Let's see, where Mercedes went to 4 with his 2024 F1 car. Okay, I don't know anything what doing 1 to 4 with. And it says underwhelming 12 months, upgrade in progress, and they always upgrading, nothing happened. Slow corner struggles, no zigzagging, onward to 2026. Let's see what they say.
12 months ago, Mercedes abandoned its Formula 1 car concept with a major upgrade package introduced at the Monaco Grand Prix. Out went the infamous zero side pods in favour of a more conventional approach. Yet 1 year on, it's still struggling. That's because in fixing its old problems, it has created some new ones that need to be tackled. That's what.
So amazing. I feel like the Mercedes car is like an old someone made some codes like 20 years ago, and now you're trying to fix the codes and it just breaks every time you're trying to do any progress. So that's a Mercedes car.
Why not only is it not close to winning races, but it's also being thrashed by one of its customer teams.
Still haven't got any podium this
Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff calls McLaren's turnaround over the past year, using the same engine, a fantastic recovery story, transforming it.
And Aston Martin did got a lot of podiums last year.
From also ran to podium regular and Grand Prix winner. So what of Wolff's team's rather less meteoric recovery story? And if McLaren has turned things around so spectacularly, why hasn't Mercedes? Well, since the introduction of the new ground effect regulations in 2022, Mercedes has fallen far short of the sky-high standards it set in winning 8 consecutive constructors' titles from 2014 to 2021. That hasn't changed since last year's Monaco upgrade, which was the first step in Mercedes setting itself on what it believes to be the right path. Inevitably, the focus from the outside world was on the ditching of the visually obvious zero side pods, but as the team has consistently said, that was not a key change. Instead, technical director James Allison pointed to the underfloor in particular. There were also tweaks to the front suspension to improve platform control, and this was all about setting Mercedes on a pathway to having a car that could run low enough to generate the necessary downforce without hitting bouncing or porpoising problems. The Mercedes W15 is the full realisation of that change of direction, yet it is firmly 4th best in 2024, both in terms of its Constructors' Championship position and its average pace, having recently moved decisively ahead of Aston Martin. That at least proves Allison was right that the sidepod change wasn't significant, but Mercedes is still a clear step behind the top three, Red Bull, Ferrari and McLaren. And while it was able to get in amongst those teams at Monaco, the previous weekend at more conventional Imola was perhaps more representative. As Lewis Hamilton said after finishing 6th at Imola, the race pace deficit was 3 or 4 tenths per lap, and he doesn't see that big a gain coming anytime soon, judging by the wind tunnel development going on. However, using Imola as a case study, it's clear that Mercedes has made tangible progress over the years.
Yeah, the progress. Yeah, I mean the progress is not to get any podiums this year.
Refer to the last Mercedes visit to Imola as horrendous, with the huge bouncing problems the team battled in the early days of the current regulations in 2022 exposed badly. Mercedes is still suffering from the knock-on effects of going the wrong way initially, but there are signs it's starting to catch up.
Hitta topprankade produkter till priser du kommer älska. Sök efter vad du behöver på amazon.se idag.
No, go. Oh my god. 20-second ad. Go away. I don't want to watch that. One more fish for the collection. Brown, yellow.
Initially, but there are signs it's starting to catch up.
Catch the definition of catching up. If you 0.01 seconds behind and you make it to just 0.1 second. Oh shit, that's more. No, you go from 0.1 second to 0.05 seconds behind. I mean, that's progress. But the progress will probably still not make you win races. Probably not even get podiums. So why even call it progress then?
Since the car changes 12 months ago, Mercedes has made progress in absolute terms insofar as its car is...
Yeah, the progress that changed almost nothing.
Generally faster than its predecessor. At the 6 circuits F1 has visited so far in 2024 that we used last year...
I mean, is it a progress that they are now faster than Aston Martin? I mean, you can say it is unprogress. But that's not a progress they actually want.
Mercedes has gone quicker at 5 of them, the exception being Miami. However, in relative terms, it's actually slightly regressed. Having ended last season on average just over 0.5% off the pace, it's been just under 0.7% off so far this year. While last year's W14 was limited by the architecture of the car, the expectation was that changes to the monocoque, gearbox and, crucially, suspension design would unlock greater development potential. And despite the so-so results, the steady progress being made with the car is proof of that, even if it's not rapid enough to climb the order. As Allison said recently when I asked him about it, there's no longer reckoned to be much in terms of the hard points of the car that must be changed. Allison argues it's now a question of hard work and development to get Mercedes back to respectability. Now, the side pod...
And that is what being not behind McLaren, not being behind Ferrari, or not being behind Red Bull. What is a respectable place?
Weren't the big change, although it's worth noting that their elimination did increase the opportunity for work in the airflow around the outside of the side pods as other teams do. Instead, when it comes to talking about concept, it's more about the ride heights you conceive the car to run at, how you achieve that, and how you approach making it work across a wide range of corner speeds and conditions. With last year's car, Allison admitted that it was conceived to run a little too high by carrying over the 2022 car concept, thanks to underestimating the opportunity presented by the tweaks to the floor height regulations. Mercedes corrected that with this year's car, car, and the greater anti-dive on the front suspension and anti-squat on the rear suspension is all about trying to get the car able to run low to produce downforce without hitting bouncing or porpoising problems. Upgrades have been steadily introduced this season. In Miami there was a modified front wing featuring a change in chord length as well as tweaks to the floor edges. Then at Monaco, George Russell ran the one new front wing available. Both drivers will use this front wing in Montreal. Just as ditching the zero side pods represented abandoning a visually obvious innovation, the same applies with the front wing. The new wing ditches the unique design Mercedes introduced at the start of the season. This connected the narrowed top flap of the front wing to the nose with a strip of carbon fibre to satisfy the regulations. Doing this opened up cleaner airflow to the front of the floor. However, it has presumably come at the cost of aero load at the front, and the front wing changes point to a big problem Mercedes faces. The big problem Mercedes had last year was rear-end stability in the faster corners. The drivers complained constantly, and fixing that was a priority. However, as Russell argues, this has led to overcompensation with this year's car. Now that the car has been better understood, it's proving stronger in the higher speed after some early season troubles, but the problem is getting the car turned into slower corners. As Hamilton puts it, the slower you go, the less the car wants to turn. That's particularly troubling for Hamilton, given one of his strengths is the ability to brake incredibly late for slow corners and still get the car rotated quickly on turn-in. The upshot is a car that's strong in the fast corners but understeers in slow turns. And if you change the setup to make the turn-in for slow corners better, the Mercedes loses some of its fast corner strength. That's why there's been so much talking about connecting up fast and slow corner performance. To characterise the problem, Wolff uses the metaphor of a small duvet that isn't big enough to cover you, and you have to give away warmth at one end or the other, i.e. fast or slow corner performance. The ongoing development programme is focused on solving this problem, and Allison believes that noticeable progress will have been made by the summer break. And right now, it's not about big transformations or magic bullets for Mercedes in the hope of suddenly getting back to winning races and fighting for championships. Instead, it's about consistent, steady progress. Wolff characterises the Mercedes approach as no longer being about zigzagging in terms of development direction. This is what has led to repeat.
This must be so fun stuff to do with the car. Just going up and down, up and down.
False dawns followed by slumps. But Wolff now says Mercedes has identified something fundamental that is giving it confidence in its ongoing development direction. Encouragingly, that sentiment isn't dissimilar to the one McLaren team principal Andreas Stella expressed prior to the Austrian Grand Prix upgrade last year that transformed its performance level. Unlike McLaren, Mercedes doesn't expect a sudden leap forward, but if it really is on the right path, then sustained steady development should gradually lift it into the front group. It's not there now, but it's not that far off. A comparison of the performance of Mercedes relative to McLaren over the past year shows the relative performance and how much difference a small gain could make. Mercedes still has much to prove. It has to show it really can sustain development and that it has built the fundamental understanding of these ground effect machines required. But it is at least now in a place where gradual development, rather than any more big changes of direction, is what's needed. The progress Mercedes makes now is crucial if it's to be in a strong position come the new engine and chassis regulations in 2026. The chassis rules are close to being finalised, and while aerodynamic testing on the 2026 cars isn't permitted until next January, all teams are already putting significant resources into other research and development. The new cars will continue to feature powerful Venturi underfloors, so all knowledge being built up now is directly applicable to 2026. Paddock chatter has it that Mercedes is potentially ahead when it comes to power unit development. While there's still
something to celebrate. The engine is better.
A long way to go, and any comparisons mean little until the new cars hit the track. Few doubt that Mercedes-AMG high-performance powertrains will produce a competitive engine. As Wolff says, Mercedes has an engine department that is as good as it can be. That's despite talk of a brain drain at Mercedes, with Red Bull team principal Christian Horner recently claiming it has poached 220 staff from Mercedes for its own powertrains operation. Wolff countered that by saying that the number of engineers taken is actually 19. It's understood that the total number is a little higher when taking into account non-engineering staff, but a long way short of the 220 claimed. And despite the knockabout public arguing, Mercedes is rightfully confident in Brixworth's capacity to produce a top engine. The key question is whether that will be...
Were they equally... Did they think about the car would be equally good? Because the people they had in the team, and after so could this be the same? They're talking, oh, Trident, let's get One more trident for the collection. Man, they're shooting so fast. Nope, no trident for me. So depressing. Yeah, but so the onion could be equally bad as the car.
Be mated to a car that isn't giving anything away to its rivals. That's why the work going on now is critical in deciding whether Mercedes can realistically get back to the front in 2026. What matters most is that Mercedes now accepts it is playing the long game in terms of development.
If Hamilton would have stayed, then yes, I believe they could do the long game. But he's leaving for 2025. And that can make so more people will leave to Ferrari. And then if the Red Bull guy, what's his name? Yeah, whatever his name is, the good designer, when he leaves, and there would be so much if he joins Williams. And maybe other people in Mercedes will leave to that team. So, I mean, the onion is maybe good, but man, it could also end up not being good.
If it's now heading in the right direction, that is. The next test of that will be the upgrades introduced in the next run of races. But what really matters is that Mercedes is able to make the next 12 months more successful than the last.
Yeah, now it's time to... Yeah, and then they did one more clip. Mercedes progress, so fuck me, it will not happen. Here we have a somewhat long clip about more of Mercedes the race have done. Is okay, Mercedes Antonelli admission. Antonelli too much hype. The guilty Mercedes making a mistake with the next F1 star. I mean, they somewhat maybe are making a mistake. It can be too much hype. But he's up there. I mean, let's go and look at the points. Formula 2. I mean, if you look at the points, Antonelli is, he have 48 points. That's maybe not good, but also it's against people. I mean, Bortoletto I know is new. Hager is not new. Simon and Hadja. I don't think they are new. Paul Aaron is new. So it's like, so I would say at least Antonelli have doing something good. Then Oliver Behrman have, I mean, he didn't do that race when he was in pole position, so he have a bad start. So from this I would say I believe it more Antonelli and Oliver Behrman. So yeah. So somewhat too much hype.
Has Mercedes gone overboard with how much it's hyping up Kimi Antonelli as its potential replacement for Lewis Hamilton? Now, Ed, since we knew that Hamilton was leaving to go to Ferrari next year, Mercedes haven't been shy about telling us Antonelli is a real contender here. He's in the running and they believe he is their next F1 superstar.
More likely than having Esteban on front.
But are we starting to get an inkling from Mercedes that perhaps they accept they've maybe gone too far with this too soon?
Well, a little bit. Toto Wolff was asked about it after the race at Imola and said, well, we shouldn't rush this. Obviously, he's been talking about him for a few months. But at the same time, he is a contender for a top seat in Formula One. That's inescapable. And in fact, it wasn't as if Toto Wolff was standing on a rooftop and making proclamations about him. After Lewis Hamilton left, it quickly became clear that Antonelli was a candidate. In fact, the day after Hamilton's move to Ferrari was announced, Wolff actually addressed Antonelli questions, because I think we were the first actually, after Hamilton confirmed his departure, to ask him about that, because I put the question to him in a press conference that happened the next morning. So it's just a fact of life. They are considering Antonelli. He's in a great position. If they don't get Max Verstappen, if everything
they will not fuck this Max Verstappen on the Mercedes
continues to go as is in his preparation, then it is set to be Antonelli. So I don't really know what they can do. Toto Wolff said in the middle of March that perhaps they were guilty of talking about him too much, and he's continued to talk about him. But I don't think they're going completely overboard. They're just stating what they're seeing, and that's just the reality of it. If you're about to throw potentially an 18-year-old into one of the top seats in F1, there's going to be a lot of talk about it. That's just inescapable.
It was going to come around sooner or later, basically, with the position that Antonelli's in. So I take Ed's point there that there's not really much that you can do to escape it. Where it feels like Wolff feels a little bit of guilt is in that kind of every time they're asked about it. I guess if they wanted to, they could choose to kind of tread on eggshells around the answer. I remember that question you asked him, Ed, and that very first answer Wolff gave was properly non-committal. It was, we don't want to start this kind of stuff. We don't want to let him focus on it. We want to let him focus on F2. We don't want to distract from that. All of this. But then by the end of that same month, Wolff was talking openly about Antonelli being being the reason that they only gave Hamilton a 1+1 in the first place, and that he was always in the picture. So maybe they inadvertently accelerated some of the hype around it, but it was coming one way or another.
But is that a bad thing? Because drivers at that level aren't so used to the media scrutiny. If he is in an F1 car for Mercedes next season, there's going to be a huge amount of attention. It's not necessarily a bad thing to have a little bit of talk out there to see how he responds to it. Yeah, it's harsh on a 17-year-old, but you're about to throw them potentially into a very challenging situation. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. So I think Mercedes are also being fairly clever here by not just completely dead-batting it away. They're making sure that it's a little bit of a discussion point out there, but it's just because it's taking time, and it will continue to take time. It just allows it to float and sort of fester. And you can't put the genie back in the bottle, can you? He's known to be a contender. That's just reality.
Yeah, there's no question. Mercedes is excited about this kid because they know how good he is. He's been on their book.
And they know also how bad their team is, so he can't be in the team
for a long time. But you mentioned earlier, I think it was you, Scott, about the dead batting the answers at the beginning. Part of what Toto said back then was we have to let him find his feet in F2 and get on with his F2 season. If you look at his F2 results so far in isolation, if he wasn't this kid who we think is a superstar who's been on Mercedes books for a long time, you wouldn't look at those results and say, well, he's destined for F1 next year and should go straight into a front-running team. Is he perhaps...
Well, Mercedes isn't a front-running team. They are the new Alpine, so he can join the team.
Not quite backing up the hype with what he's doing in the car on these F1 support weekends.
I would always take anything you see, read or hear about anything that happens in Formula 2 with a big old pinch of salt. That is a strange championship, especially when a new car comes on stream, which it has this season, and Prema Antonelli's team also runs Ollie Behrman, another superstar young talent, looks destined for the F1 grid next year, probably with Haas. He's struggling as well. Prema hasn't been able to get to grips with that new car in the way that it would have expected to, its drivers would have expected to, and its drivers' backers, Mercedes in the case of Antonelli and Ferrari in the case of Behrman, would have expected it to. So there's always a little bit there where you have to kind of look at broader circumstances or other variables. That is something that factors into the form we've seen so far. The other thing is that Antonelli's not a normal rookie in that he is only 17. He skipped a step entirely, cut out F3, gone straight there from Formula Regional. So he's at a point where any rookie is going to need to progress over their season. They're going to need to show themselves as a driver, but also results better in the second half than in the first half. That's just a given. But it's extra the case with Antonelli, basically, because that learning curve is so much steeper. So where he is now is nowhere near as relevant as where he is in the second half of the year. And actually where he is now is kind of fine. It's actually quite a good start to a rookie season with a new car and all the situations. It's not completely unusual for really highly regarded rookies to come in and be around the sort of top 4, top 5 in the points. So Antonelli's not a million miles away off where he probably should be. Yes, he doesn't have those blockbuster headline results, but if he's as good as Mercedes and even us, even we think he is, those results are probably going to come sooner rather than later. And anyway, like I say, F2 is not the be-all and end-all for how you judge a driver, and it's not just going to be the only way that Mercedes is judging this kid.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case, and while we can't completely dismiss his F2 progress, it's his Formula 1 test programme in old Mercedes machinery that's the absolute key. And I think it's probably quite telling that Antonelli's been struggling for confidence in the F2 car, hasn't quite got the rear stability he wants, and then he's jumped in the 2022 Mercedes. He did initial running in the 21 car, to the old rules. Then he jumped into the 22 Mercedes, which, as we remember, is a bit of a yumping monstrosity of a car.
Yeah, the poor guy.
And he took to it well. He was confident in that car. James Allison talked about him, says he's been metronomic, that he has no preconceptions about it. He didn't quite say on the record that he's the real deal, but that was what his answer in the press conference on Friday at Imola added up to. So he's doing a good job in that programme. Toto Wolff has in the past said that although that programme was always scheduled to start this year, even before the Hamilton departure was known, it has been increased in terms of its intensity. So this is a...
I mean, that's the only positive with Mercedes. It's Antonelli. Nothing else is positive for Mercedes.
Preparatory programme. And I think what the Mercedes Formula 1 test programme for him allows them to do is also triangulate it with F2. So it's not F2 in isolation, it's F2 progress within the context of how Prema are doing, within the context of how Ollie Behrman, his teammate, is doing, of course, who showed what he could do in Saudi Arabia, along with the learning curve and the attitude and the mental approach and all those factors when it comes to the Mercedes
I
F1.
really hope Kym Magnussen get a race ban so Oliver Behrman can have one more race in Formula 1.
So it's a very three-dimensional view for Mercedes, who we should remember as well have had Antonelli on their books since he was in karting.
That would be something. He gets also points.
So it's a very, very thorough process, I would say.
And with that F1 testing program, one of the really valuable things is this wasn't the case, I think, for the first 3 tests he did. I think it was the first one in the 21 car and then the first 2 in the 22 car. He was running on his own, but Mercedes is in a lovely position where it can introduce a benchmark for him as well, whether that's Mick Schumacher or maybe even a George Russell to run on track alongside him. That's going to be super valuable, because it's all well and good having the litany of data and references that they have for previous times they've run on track X or in conditions like this or whatever. But when you do those tests, sometimes it's a real it's beyond comparing apples and oranges. So the ability and they have started doing that, put a reference car on track for him, that is just only going to add to it further. It's impossible to overstate how serious that testing program is. It's the you remember when Oscar Piastri came into F1 and Alpine had inadvertently made McLaren's day by giving him thousands of testing kilometres in an old F1 car. It's as prepared as you can possibly be as a rookie from an F1 testing point of view with the modern day restrictions.
Vill du ha senap eller ketchup?
Ja, men jag tar senap.
Vanlig eller stark?
Vanlig.
Yeah, and I can see why if you're Mercedes and there's all those variables that you mentioned around his F2 campaign, actually you're going to place more weight on when your team is working with him directly in F1 machinery. That's probably going to tell you more. So Scott, if Mercedes go ahead with this and they put Antonelli in the car next year, how big a gamble is that? Is it almost an unnecessary...
I wouldn't say it's any gamble. The car is already a gamble. So the car is already bad. So if he performs good or bad, it doesn't matter. The car is already bad.
Risk when presumably the option would exist to do what they did with George Russell and go and place him at Williams just to get him used to F1 in a lower pressure environment.
Yeah, I mean
the pressure is already low in Mercedes.
I love it when teams take risks with drivers, but even I have my limits there, and I think it's such an unusual case where it would be unprecedented to do what he's done. Like even Max Verstappen, where Antonelli and Verstappen is the comparison that always gets made, not just because part of the logic for this is because Wolff still has nightmares from missing out on Max Verstappen a decade ago when Red Bull was able to give him an F1 seat with Toro Rosso. But that's the crucial thing. With Toro Rosso, Verstappen didn't go straight into F1 from F3 into Red Bull Racing, fighting for wins and in a top machinery. Now, he's probably not going to do that with Mercedes next year, to be honest, given the form that they've had over the last...
So he will actually go to Toro Rosso, but it's the main team.
And to Toro Rosso, actually, isn't it?
So I appreciate that it isn't a like for like, but it would be unprecedented. You know, even Verstappen, despite that expedited apprenticeship, he still had.
Yeah, well, Mercedes isn't a top team no more. I mean, Williams was the top team. Are they a top team now? No.
He still went to a second tier team before he got to sit at the big boys table.
And Mercedes is not a top team or a second top team.
George Russell did it, you mentioned it there. Charles Leclerc did it. When Lando Norris stepped up into F1 with McLaren was basically a Toro Rosso in terms of its competitiveness. So it would be a big gamble, and my personal view on this is I think he would be better off serving that apprenticeship with it's so harsh to say, but a lesser team, just out of the limelight as much as anything else, because Mercedes has so much scrutiny as a fallen giant of F1 as it is, and more than that, he'd be Lewis Hamilton's replacement. There's so much pressure in that, and if they have as much of a yo-yoing kind of season as they've had over the last 3 years, he could have weekends where he looks terrible and gets absolutely ravaged in the media and by fans on social media. Like,
why would he be that? When it's not like he will not. It no longer a top team, so he will have no problems. What the fuck you talk about? The only problem he will actually have is driving for Mercedes in a bad car.
The risk of burning him could be quite great. So I would be hesitant. It'd be really cool if they did it, but I think if there was a Williams seat going, it would just make more sense to me.
But the situation is very good for Mercedes. I don't think they'd consider putting him in for 25 if they have a reasonable expectation of being a championship contender that year. So they see it as a bit of a free hit. And obviously they have to be careful. They have to accept there will be ups and downs. They'll have to protect him from that. And I think that will be more important than whatever.
The team is already up and down. It will not change anything.
They're saying or doing publicly right now. But it's an opportunity to give a driver who they rate incredibly highly. They don't just think he's good, they think he is a megastar. They think he is going to be, and they can accelerate his progress by doing this. It's not the absolute ideal progression, but almost no driver gets the absolute perfect pathway into F1, the perfect strategy. You could argue George Russell should have been in a Mercedes quicker than he actually was, for example. So I think there's a good opportunity here. There's the saying that if you're good enough, you're old enough, and I think that does ring true. It's going to be a huge test on him mentally beyond.
But it made his first win even more fun or important or rememberable. That is not he won in a bad car against Lewis Hamilton that has still not won a race since 2021 Saudi Arabia. So it's just so amazing.
It's just his ability. An 18-year-old, still very young, brain still developing, all that kind of thing. That's a big ask. But Max Verstappen's shown that you can do it. So big ask, but a huge potential reward, a huge upside. And I applaud Mercedes because they could easily go for a really proven quantity. Carlos Sainz is an outstanding driver, is on the market, and he's still in the mix for Mercedes should they need him.
He'd be a great signing.
Exactly, he'd do a good job, but They think Antonelli has got a higher upside than Sainz, and plenty would agree with that. Sainz is a brilliant all-round driver, but just that last tiny iota of outright pace he doesn't quite have that Charles Leclerc has over him, which is what they're looking for down the line. Antonelli has that. They could plug in an Esteban Ocon or a Valtteri Bottas or any of these people who would do a perfectly decent job on an interim basis. But
why not pick Antonelli? It's so fucking retarded. Why would you just pick someone that are somewhat good, then pick someone that you believe in, and that you, instead of them training in another team, they get the full training in the real team that they will one day be in. So why not be in the first place?
The real prize is Antonelli, and they're doing everything they can to do their due diligence, make sure they educate him, prepare him for next year, and if he ticks all those boxes, and he's ticked a lot of them, then he can go in the car next year. Then it's just about how it goes, how he responds to it, how they protect him next year that will dictate his career trajectory.
Okay. Let's see, do they have anything more about Mercedes? Well, not. You can say somewhat Mercedes. It's Williams. They've done some stuff about Williams and Antonelli. So let's see. What they have here.
In-season F1 driver changes are always dramatic and represent a last resort, and Red Bull usually leads the way when this happens. But this time it's another team being heavily linked with dropping one of its current drivers for what could be a massive gamble to land a mega prospect for the next couple of years if it works out. The prospect of Williams dumping the embattled Logan Sargent became an unfortunate talking point around the young American's home race just down the road from where he grew up. There were even suggestions that the Miami Grand Prix could be his last before being axed for a teenage rookie, Kimi Antonelli. That is wide of the mark, but we'll come to the when later. Even if it's not imminent, Williams potentially replacing Sargent with Mercedes protege Antonelli is at least a credible prospect, one that's also emerged through a slightly strange source.
Okay.
Antonelli's just started a private F1 testing program with Mercedes because he's a surprising but legitimate contender to drive for the team next year in the wake of Lewis Hamilton's shock move to Ferrari. But for more on his Mercedes
shock move, I don't see it. Why do people think it's a shock move? It's just a normal move. You leave a bad team for a good team.
Prospect specifically, check out this video. It's amazing for a 17-year-old to be at the centre of a shock mid-season driver switch storyline, and Kimi's age is relevant. As he's not 18 until August, he's not yet... some information about trying to get him in Formula 1 or get his driver license or something. Is that they're talking about? Eligible for a super license because of the minimum age criteria, even though he has the necessary points from his Italian F4 and Formula Regional European Championship wins. And as you also need a valid regular driving license, which Antonelli can't get in Italy until he's 18, he's ineligible on that count as well. Kimi's present ineligibility is the reason the prospect of a Williams move has leaked into the public domain the way it has, because the FIA says it's received a request for an exemption for Antonelli to get a super license early. The governing body says officially that it's looking into this request, but there's a process to be followed and multiple people and commissions are required to vote and agree to it, as it requires a rule change. Even though it's only really the result of responding to a question about it, it's surprising for the FIA to have gone on record about this, as individual super license queries have often gone unanswered in the past. For example, it was impossible to verify details about Colton Herta when the IndyCar driver's super license ineligibility was a hot topic a couple of years ago. But the Antonelli information confirms that on some level, someone relevant wants to know if he can get into an F1 car on a Grand Prix weekend early.
There's not much information about the request itself, so we don't know, for example, if it's for just a Friday free practice only super license. That allows drivers to, you guessed it, take part in a Friday practice session and has the same age and driving license restrictions as the main super license. Whatever it is specifically regarding, Mercedes says it has not approached the FIA to get a super license early for Antonelli, which many have taken to mean that Williams must have raised it, even if only as an informal question. It might only be that Mercedes or Williams wants to establish whether Kimi can drive in Friday practice sooner rather than later. Every team has to run a rookie in 2 FP1s after all, but
that's one way to make that work.
It's thought to be more than that.
What kind of rookie they would have instead used? Vesty maybe? Probably.
As rumours swirled about this at the recent Miami Grand Prix, Williams boss James Vowles didn't exactly rule out replacing Sargent with Antonelli in season when we asked specifically about that prospect.
That's nice. Oh, Trident. Or can this drop on Trident for me? Drop it. Still not Trident. This is so boring.
He said he'd not spoken to Kimi directly since Abu Dhabi last year, that Williams is assessing where it wants its 2025 driver lineup to be, and in the case of him coming into the car this year...
Oh shit, what did I pick for Williams? Drugovic, come on. Mick Schumacher to Alpine and Drugovic for Williams.
It's a meritocracy, Logan has to earn his seat. Vowles did also say of Sargent that he's in the...
would be something. Getting... I mean, Drugovic is from Brazil. Oh, they should have fucking picked him this year. And then they could have done a super celebration with the Artasana stuff. With Drugovic.
Car, he'll remain in the car, but there must have been an unspoken for now at the end. We did kind of get that in another answer when Vowles claimed there is nothing on the radar at the moment for replacing Sargent, leaving clear wiggle room for it to emerge as a possibility.
Nah, it would be so perfect if they got Drugovic in what do you say? Drugovic in yeah, instead of they getting Sargent, Drugovic got actually promoted into Formula 1. And then this year could be so perfect with the celebration with Artasana and everything with him. Maybe even paint the car in the famous yellow blue Canon livery, I think. Okay, man. Whatever.
While Mercedes boss Toto Wolff has said an imminent F1 move isn't happening for Antonelli, that's different to an early one. So while we're not expecting Antonelli to suddenly appear in the Williams at Imola, we can't rule out it happening later in the year. We understand...
Oh shit, Imola. When will that happen? Imola... where do we have schedule? Wait, what? Oh, Imola. Okay, that have already happened. Okay, so I can tell this is all news. Nothing got changed that race.
And that Mercedes could be open to the idea, depending on what happens with its own driver choice for 20.
But there's another race in Italy, so it can happen in Monza.
25, but we'll get to the timing shortly. This is only a consideration because of Sargent's extended, unconvincing start to his F1 career. Sargent wasn't ready to be on the grid last year. He was pushed into an early F1 graduation because of a driver dilemma.
Yeah, man. They should have picked Drugovich at that time. Fucking wild looks.
Emma Williams found itself in for 2023. Since then, he's struggled to match teammate Alex Albon, has just one inherited points finish from last year to his name, and has suffered several crashes. But we should point out, his main setback this year was out
picking Mick Schumacher
out of his control, as Williams benched him in Australia so Albon could race Sargent chassis after a practice crash. Williams has repeatedly backed Sargent but set formal targets for him to meet this season. We don't know exactly what they are, but they've been referenced publicly as a broad need to start challenging and beating Albon more. For the most part, Sargent has fallen short of that, although he did at least technically beat Albon in a competitive session for the first time in Miami, where Albon had his best lap deleted in sprint qualifying. Sargent's hardly Williams' biggest problem at the moment, given its underwhelming 2024 car has yet to score a point even in Albon's hands. But the situation has left Williams at least evaluating whether it needs a more competitive second driver in the short term, not just next year and beyond.
So maybe not Drugovich.
We understand that any chance of a Williams move depends on Antonelli going there for a couple of years. That suggests that while Williams has its own other junior drivers in the academy that Sargent graduated from, including Antonelli's F2 rivals Zach O'Sullivan and Franco Colapinto, the prospect of taking
I believe more in Zach O'Sullivan and Franco Colapinto than Logan Sargent.
On Mercedes' much-hyped youngster is clearly more appealing. But what does Mercedes want? Antonelli bypassed Formula 3 and stepped straight into Formula 2 this season at 17. He's not scored a podium in the opening events and he's 9th in the championship, but has compared well to his teammate, another highly rated F1 prospect, Ollie Behrman. Mercedes isn't worried by Antonelli's form, particularly given his Premier teams had an unusually challenging start with a brand new F2 car introduced for 2024 and is more interested in his development. As Antonelli is still a contender for a Mercedes drive in 2025, the multiple world champion team needs to decide what's best for his progression. Theoretically, a quick Williams apprenticeship this year could be useful for a full-time Mercedes seat next year, but that could also be disruptive, especially as it would mean cutting short his time in F2 and at least compromising his F1 testing program. And it would only be a short-term measure for Williams. A more mutually beneficial arrangement would be if Mercedes signs Carlos Sainz or ideally Max Verstappen and Antonelli has a multi-year Williams stint.
No, stop with that stupid thinking. Why would that be better? I mean, Mercedes isn't in the top. They're not even getting podiums now. So why not put him there in the first place? So he will grow and learn when the car is getting better. So he can learn about the car even more.
Like George Russell did. One reason Mercedes is happy to wait is that Antonelli is so young and inexperienced that continuing his F2 season alongside testing old Mercedes F1 cars should propel him quickly alongside a steep learning curve. There has been intense speculation around Antonelli's maiden F1 tests in 2021 and 2022 Mercedes machinery at the Red Bull Ring and Imola supposedly being very good. But reported performance levels and lap time comparisons are exaggerated, purely because such analysis is massively compromised by so many variables being different to when Mercedes has run at these tracks in the past and the fact that there was no benchmark driver to compare him to.
True.
Leaking supposed stint lap times, then giving glowing reviews about how quick and consistent they are, might just be some local overexcitement in Antonelli's
some members like me with Ricciardo also.
Italy. Or, like the idea of Antonelli being thrown in for Sargent immediately for the next race at Imola, it could be a way to drum up interest
Didn't happen, but Monza can happen.
Among the fan base with the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix around the corner. What we can say is that Mercedes seems satisfied with how Antonelli's conducted himself and he's avoided any problematic incidents in these tests. And Mercedes upped the ante slightly with his most recent test at Silverstone in the week after Miami by giving him an actual benchmark, thought to be running its reserve driver and ex-Haas F1 racer Mick Schumacher on the same day.
Yeah.
Sänkta priser på närmare 1000
Come on.
produkter. Handla nu på oljeprodukter.se.
Vals has made it clear that Sargent needs to prove he deserves his seat. He is the incumbent driver, so his fate should be in his own hands, and he will almost certainly get a few more races to try to save himself. If this in-season change becomes a reality, it may well be realised in a matter of months rather than weeks. After the summer break seems the most likely. Antonelli turns 18 on the Sunday of the Dutch Grand Prix, so he'd still need permission for a super licence early to compete at Zandvoort. Alternatively, he could make his F1 debut a week later at Monza for the Italian Grand Prix. You can imagine there being a lot of excitement and desire for an Italian on the grid there, but that would be a lot of pressure for Kimi to deal with. Zandvoort would at least let him get that first weekend under his belt before racing in front of a home crowd. And given Williams has sacrificed its prodigious straight line speed with its 2024 car philosophy, there at least wouldn't be the same weight of expectation to immediately grab a result at one of its best tracks, as Monza has been previously. This timing would give Kimi 1 or 2 races on circuits he is at least familiar with, before a tough run of flyaways that aren't just new tracks, but challenging ones as well. But Williams needs to decide what it wants to do first. The speculation has moved quicker than reality, which is why the story played out so publicly in Miami, where Sargent had a very Sargent weekend of good speed but no end result. Sargent says he's not letting speculation get to him and that he feels comfortable in his position, but at various points through the Miami weekend, Sargent looked and sounded the opposite of that. His pained radio messages after a Q1 elimination when he was only a tenth slower than Albon, and following his Kevin Magnussen clash in the race, were really hard to listen to. The circumstances were obviously bad, but the speculation and pressure may have fed into why he sounded so upset. It was probably still Sargent's best weekend of the season versus Albon, and Val said he didn't put a foot wrong in the race. That can maybe give him some confidence, but he'll need a lot more events like that with some actual results to keep his seat, not just beyond this season, for the rest of it.
God damn it, it's the third time they... God damn it. They have... Let's see, money... One more of Williams and then something about Andretti. And then hopefully I'll hopefully I will have enough fishes done.
The Williams FW46 is a much better car than last year's. Yet paradoxically, 6 events into the 2024 season, it hasn't scored a single point. What's more, having finished 7th in the Constructors' Championship last season with 28 points, Williams is only spared from last place in the current standings by Sauber's abject start, thanks to having...
Now they are above Alpine after the Monaco with 2 points.
One more 11th place finish. That's a disappointing start for a team with serious ambitions to climb the grid. Yet despite that, star driver Alex Albon has now committed his long-term future to Williams after signing a new contract, something team principal James Vowles called a huge vote of confidence in the team. And that does partly reflect the progress already being made, with Albon calling the 24 car corner for corner better than last year's Williams FW45. That's not reflected in the results, and this is down to a combination of factors which can best be summed up with the old aphorism that sometimes you have to take one step backwards to go 2 forwards. It's just Williams hasn't yet completed those 2 steps forward. To understand exactly what's happened, we need to take a look back to last season and what's changed with the car.
Let's see, the car, instead of being as good in some tracks because of how fast they can be on the straight, they are now less good in straight, but they are more good overall. Something they can more build on. So they don't 100% know what tracks they are good at or tracks they are bad at. They just know that whatever track it is, they can do something.
The 2023 Williams was a peaky, erratic car, one capable of reaching Q3 on a good day, as happened 9 times last year, but that was eliminated in Q1 half of the time. That sporadic pace made it possible to score points 9 times and finish 7th in the Constructors' Championship. Williams prevailed as the best team in the battle at the back with AlphaTauri, Sauber and Haas, earning it significantly more prize money than might reasonably have been expected going into the season. Many of the best Williams results depended on getting into a good position and being able to hold off quicker cars around the lap thanks to the prodigious straight line speed of a car that lacked downforce. As Williams head of vehicle performance Dave Robson put it, Albon was particularly adept at being able to play to the strengths of the car with such defensive drives, most famously with his 7th place in Canada. While the Williams could get good results on its day, there were too many times when it was nowhere. In particular, it was susceptible to performance
and now they are somewhere every race.
Fluctuations according to wind conditions because it wasn't robust aerodynamically. Although Williams made gains from 2022 to 2023, the target for this year was a far more consistent car, and that's something Williams has delivered on.
And oh shit, go away. And having a consistent car can be in the long run better than just having a good car at some races. That means so you can actually, the information you get, you can actually use and improve the car.
And that's something Williams has delivered on. The aim for 2024 was to make the new car more of an all-rounder in terms of its performance, and that's something Williams has successfully done. However, that has had an impact on its performance level. While Williams hasn't reached Q3 once this year, it has generally been a Q2 car, making it to the second stage of qualifying.
Oh, they have got to a Q3 now because of Monaco.
5 times out of 11 attempts across the 6 race weekends. That number would be higher but for Logan Sargent's struggles in the second car. It's a similar story in the races, where Williams has generally loitered outside the top 10, only spending a combined total of 16 laps in the points positions in the 6 Grand Prix held so far. However, bearing in mind Sargent has struggled to get...
Thanks to Monaco, they have now spent over 17 more laps.
The most from the car this season, as well as the fact he sat out the Australian Grand Prix. The fact the car has spent so much of the season running between 12th and 16th is significant. While it's difficult to break into the top 10, the Williams has generally been fairly consistently in the lower midfield. Other teams have fluctuated more. That means that Williams has run reasonably briskly but without being rewarded by points. That's reflected in the overall performance. In terms of average pace over a lap, the deficit to the front is much the same for Williams this year as it was last year at around 1.5%. And if you look at each individual race weekend, Williams has been stronger than last year on 3 of them and weaker in the other 3. That might sound much of a muchness, and in some ways it is, but as Robson puts it, being more consistent is the way to go. But the downside is that Williams is struggling to score points, something that could be improved with a peakier car, but only in the short term. That better chance is based on the characteristics, the straight line speed that makes it easier to hold position, and that's an unintended consequence of a car that lacks peak downforce. It also means a car that will struggle on many tracks, but that can perform well on ones with compromised setups in terms of downforce level that have favourable corner characteristics. Last year, the Williams also struggled with front-end lockups into slow corners. That's a characteristic that has been cured this year, which means it's not fundamentally limited on tracks that have plenty of slow turns. But this does come with some negatives, at least for now. Williams is still building understanding of its machine, and as Albon has explained, it has in some ways become a more unstable car because of the change in philosophy. But Williams has fallen far behind in terms of its aerodynamic understanding, an area where it has struggled for decades. So it's still fighting the usual battles with these ground effect cars in terms of achieving a good balance for a wide range of corner speeds, and that was a big problem at Suzuka, as well as understanding how to optimise the aerodynamic and mechanical characteristics to run the car as low as possible and maximise downforce. For all their problems, the new Williams is a more benign car that performs across a wider range of track configurations and conditions than it did last year. But as Robson admits, it just isn't paying dividends because the car isn't quite quick enough. Yet. But it is on the cusp of making that step. And but for 2 big problems, Williams might already be in a position to be racking up the points. Williams first hit trouble with its 2024 car.
Oh my god, all the crashes.
This was a result of the necessary push to modernise its processes for building new cars. Whereas once Williams carried over a number of components from year to year and took various necessary shortcuts in the car build process thanks to its reduced circumstances, this is something team principal James Vowles has pushed to change. But this exposed significant weaknesses, particularly with the archaic systems used to track the baffling array of components and parts being designed and manufactured. That primarily depends.
I mean, it's good for the future, but man, not good for not good for this season. Let's see, 38. Let's see, 20. Let's see, 3, 13. The 38. So 25. 302. Let's see. 25 plus 13 is 38. Okay, so plus 38. So we can have 1,325 tropical fishes now. Let's see.
It's being designed and manufactured. That primarily depended on an enormous, not fit for purpose Excel spreadsheet. That led to problems with manufacturing and, at one stage, concerns the car might not even be ready for testing. It was, but it meant the car was not running in as advanced a specification as it should have been. There was a second problem as a consequence of that, with Williams going into the campaign without a spare chassis. That was not a big problem in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, but things started to snowball when Alex Albon crashed in FP1 in Australia.
Yeah, like, man, all these crashes is like, the fuck? What is happening? Nope. I don't think I got any. Light blue was the closest one, I think. To 100% same color fish. God damn it. Okay, we want the B fishes. And the C fishes for now. Okay, not all sea fish we can take. Oh.
Not only did that force teammate Sargent to miss the Grand Prix after Albon was given his chassis, but necessitated diverting resources into shipping the Morcott back to the UK and its repair. This happened again after the next race at Suzuka thanks to Albon's first lap crash after being hit by Daniel Ricciardo. That and the significant number of parts lost meant Williams' development progress has stalled. As Albon says, Williams hasn't put a decent update on all season. He's not exaggerating. Aside from the odd circuit-specific part, the only new components were a minor tweak to the rear brake ducts in Australia, a new front wing end plate in Japan, a modification to the halo fairing in China, and a tweak to the front wing in Miami. This inevitably means Williams has started to fall away from the midfield leaders, Haas and RB, as
maybe not Haas. RB, definitely. They will soon hopefully overtake Haas. They should be behind RB. And then Alpine can then overtake Haas also.
Others have introduced more significant development packages. Having been 7th or 8th fastest in the early races, it has more recently been 9th or 10th. Indeed, the comparison with Haas is particularly relevant, as it has almost taken Williams' place with a car that can make Q3 on occasion and that has frustratingly strong straight line speed that makes it tough to pass in races. While Williams' early struggles in 2024 might indicate a repeat of last year's 7th place isn't on the cards, there are reasons to be optimistic. Firstly, its 2023 campaign also had a stuttering start with only 1 point scored in the first 6 weekends, just one more than in the same stretch this year. It wasn't until a substantial upgrade was introduced for the 8th race of the season in Canada that Williams started to get the results. And Williams does have upgrades in the pipeline, including some expected to be introduced at Imola this weekend. On top of that, Albon is confident even with its struggles the car has been good enough to score points if the maximum performance can be extracted. The group of 5 teams in the second half of the grid is still only covered by 17 points, and if Williams can gain those few tenths with imminent upgrades, then it can aspire to become a consistent point scorer. But most importantly, it is now on a development path that isn't fundamentally limited by a peaky car philosophy that means its ultimate potential is capped. That makes it harder to score points right now, but it's short-term pain that will allow Williams in the longer term to make bigger gains as it pushes to take the next steps on what it hopes is the long journey back to the front of the grid.
And hopefully they will succeed with member Andrew Newey. What? Light grey purple. Nice. Magenta pink. Boring. Nope. Time for Brinley. And there's one clip that can be shown while I do this. Something about Andretti.
New.
Brinley. Orange, light blue. Nice. Let's see. The ads are over and we can start.
Cartel-like behaviour, making excuses, and a model that may be entirely broken. Formula One has received a stinging attack over its continued opposition to Andretti Cadillac's would-be new team. The dispute over F1's rejection of the planned General Motors-backed Andretti Global project has escalated amid mounting political pressure in the United States. The proposed new F1 team has been in limbo for months, ever since the commercial rights holder dismissed its application despite the FIA giving Andretti the green light in October last year. Since being blocked, Andretti has continued with its preparations, pursued a dialogue with Formula...
See, purple... Wait, what? They were purple black. Wait, what? Purple. Nice. Back to the
Formula
video.
One management to try to get it to reconsider and been considering its options should that fail. Getting political support in the US appears to be crucial to that final point. Ahead of the Miami Grand Prix, 1978 world champion Mario Andretti was invited to Capitol Hill after a dozen US politicians signed a letter calling for more information about the team's rejection and expressing concerns that F1 was exhibiting cartel-like behaviour by refusing to expand the grid. This has been followed up by the revelation of a letter sent post-race from another politician, chairman of the House Judiciary Committee Jim Jordan, to Liberty Media President and CEO Greg Maffei and F1 President and CEO Stefano Domenicali.
I wonder if all this talk will actually lead to anything, or it's just no, they can still choose who and who cannot be in the team.
The Committee on the Judiciary is authorised to conduct oversight of and legislate on matters relating to the protection of trade and commerce against unlawful restraints and monopolies. We understand that F1's position on Andretti and GM is unchanged, meaning this action is likely to result in a confrontation, for it is rooted in the reasons for rejecting Andretti, which F1 stands by, and Andretti and its supporters clearly disagree with. Congressman Jordan says that they are just excuses that appear to be pretextual, arbitrary, and unrelated to Andretti Cadillac's suitability to compete.
And even more funny, Liberty Media is from America, so they're so big bias to not having an American team in the sport.
In Formula 1. So what's going on? How does it impact the standoff, and what happens next? One of the reasons the rejection rationale was so controversial is F1 took it upon itself to evaluate the likely competitiveness of the entry, as it viewed that as intrinsically linked to its potential value. It determined an 11th team alone would not provide value, and cited various reasons for concern about Andretti's project specifically. Andretti had a provisional Renault deal lined up that the French manufacturer no longer seems keen on, and F1 fears having to compel another manufacturer to supply an engine would be damaging to the prestige and standing of the championship. The rules state that an existing engine manufacturer will be picked to supply any team that cannot strike a deal on its own, so the implication is Andretti would be hamstrung by such an arrangement and potentially more compromised than a normal customer. While the Andretti name carries some recognition for F1 fans, F1 decided it would bring value to the Andretti brand rather than the other way around. The addition of an 11th team would place an operational burden on race promoters, F1 said, would subject some of them to significant costs to expand facilities to accommodate the extra team, and would reduce garage, paddock and hospitality spaces of the other competitors. F1 also claimed it was not able to identify any material expected positive effect on Liberty Media's financial results as a key indicator of the pure commercial value of the championship. The mounting US political pressure marks an end to an unusually quiet period in this dispute, which has bounced between at times antagonistic Andretti tactics and frustrating, uncooperative F1 silence. Jordan believes the Judiciary Committee has the means to investigate F1, which is owned by US company Liberty Media, because sports leagues operate in a notable area of antitrust law. He asserts that F1 may be engaging in collusion that amounts to anti-competitive conduct by rejecting Andretti, and that even delaying the entry by a year will harm American consumers to benefit failing Formula 1 teams. Though it is unclear why Jordan believes American consumers will lose out, it is presumably based on the perceived interest there would
Haas is already there, so what do you mean?
Be in watching Andretti Cadillac compete. As for the failing teams he cites, that is most likely referencing the fact many teams do not compete regularly for wins and podiums, which F1 used as a benchmark to judge whether Andretti Cadillac would be competitive. F1's exact wording was that the best mark of competitiveness would be, in particular, by competing for podiums and race wins, as this would materially increase fan engagement and increase the value of the championship in the eyes of key stakeholders and sources of revenue. Jordan's letter is based on various media reports and statements and includes us among its cited sources, which we have to say is a first to appear alongside a US Congress letterhead. And it properly plays into the way F1 is handling this. He writes that...
Does that mean this is really important, or is it's actually nothing? It's not important. It's super lame.
Limiting the number of teams will increase the price of sponsoring or buying into an existing team, and that if F1 must hinder competition and harm consumers to protect failing competitors, then the entire Formula 1 model may be broken. If that's the case, he asserts, then F1 cannot hide behind the necessity of a sports league to pursue anti-competitive conduct. The upshot is, Jordan's requested a detailed briefing on the decision to deny Andretti Cadillac's application. This includes demanding documents and communications regarding the process F1 conducted, anything referring or related to Andretti Global, as well as between or among Formula 1 Group, Liberty Media and the 10 existing teams about the entry of a new team. F1 is not yet commenting publicly on the matter, but Andretti Global, which has been rather quiet of late and lets others do the talking, said it is glad that the decision to investigate the practices of Liberty and FOM has been made. There has been communication between the parties, and a meeting was held recently in the weeks leading up to Miami. This could have happened months ago, when F1 wrote to Andretti in December extending an invitation to an in-person meeting at its offices for Andretti to present its application. But Andretti did not take F1 up on this offer, which it claimed was the result of the email ending up in a junk folder. Despite in-person discussions finally happening, little real progress has been made. Andretti's understood to have confirmed its entry is all about 2026, having initially made a lot of noise about 2025, which was one of F1's reasons for rejecting it. Andretti sees competing in 2026 and 27 as a necessary glide path before adopting the GM Works engine in 2028. But as nothing has fundamentally changed in F1's position, the impasse continues. That may well be what encouraged political interference in the US. Meanwhile, Andretti has adopted a favoured messaging that it is pushing on with its plans at pace, which includes inaugurating a UK base. Andretti Global has formally unveiled a 48,000 square foot building at Silverstone with the potential to scale it up further. One suggestion is that this could be something of a red herring, given it is not a standalone F1 facility and will also come to incorporate the Andretti Formula E team that is based in Banbury. Andretti does describe it as a collaborative site for our global family of race teams. How it compares to other local F1 teams in that area, such as Mercedes and Haas, F1's smallest team, is debatable, with some suggestions it is inferior to those. But it is unfinished. As Andretti says, it will be completed in phases according to commercial and sporting needs and workforce requirements, and it's not meant to be a full-scale headquarters. This UK site is just a European satellite, with Andretti's principal site being in Indiana, given Andretti's commitment to being an all-American team.
Nice.
There are also plans to utilise Cadillac and GM facilities in the US, like the GM Tech Center in North Carolina. These different locations have shared the F1 project workload so far. F1 didn't close the door completely on Andretti with its rejection earlier this year. There was a carrot dangled for 2028. That's when the project would have the GM Works engine, and F1's official position is it would look differently on that kind of programme. The suggestion is that F1 would likely accept that entry, but that's very easy to say now in a bid to kick the can down the road, shut Andretti up, and then never actually follow through. Especially as in its initial rejection of Andretti, F1 argued that a novice constructor in partnership with a new engine supplier would have a significant challenge to overcome. And it pointed out that most of the attempts to establish a new constructor in the last several decades have not been successful. It is also important to note that the original FIA selection process was for 2025, 26 or 27. That means the FIA would probably have to reopen the entire process and give other teams that were originally rejected completely, like High-Tech, another crack at getting in. One other factor that could become relevant is speculation of a proposal to enshrine a maximum 10-team grid in the Concord Agreement. That would turn the perception that F1 is a closed shop and a cartel into reality. Right now, F1 can legitimately, if tenuously, claim that it is not inherently opposed to expanding the grid because all the relevant regulations and commercial framework allow for up to 13 teams to compete. Eradicating that would be a terrible look, as well as self-defeating. If a desirable manufacturer-backed team was ready and willing to enter F1, the championship would be obliged to turn it away. And this is not presently thought to be a serious prospect. So the main question is whether F1 is serious about its 2028 proposal for a GM Works team, and whether Andretti's willing to drop its 2026 ambition, call F1's bluff, and find out. There's not really a clock on this process as a whole, although individual elements have a mix of specific and non-specific deadlines. For example, F1 has been given until May the 21st to respond to Jordan's letter, so there is a short-term limbo while he awaits a reply, and then the possibility for further escalation if he does not get it, or it is unsatisfactory. Bigger picture, the FIA has accepted Andretti Cadillac's entry, and if the team's work continues at pace, then it will presumably keep on with its wind tunnel work on current regulations.
Keep wasting money and then they still will not get in Formula 1. No, I believe it maybe they will probably someday be part of Formula 1. For some reason it will just take really long time.
Car and be waiting to start developing a car for the 2026 rules.
Oh,
that
right.
feels a long way down the road, but it probably means an indeterminate deadline this year to draw a line under this either way to avoid this woeful situation descending into true farce. F1 could be grappling with a scenario in which a team has a right to an entry from the FIA but no commercial agreement from F1 or place in the paddock or some other nonsense setup. We can foresee three realistic options at this stage.
Oh, boring.
1. The pressure being brought on F1 will bear fruit, it will change its position and Andretti Cadillac will get a 2026 entry. 2. That does not happen and Andretti launches a full-on legal challenge. Or 3. Andretti accepts that 2026 isn't happening, calls F1's bluff and commits completely to the idea of entering in 2028 as the unequivocal GM Works team. And we find out if F1's really just intending to run through this all over again.
Light blue. Yeah.
Let's see, that must be the last one. Yep, it's the last one. And then we can end it. Need to just light blue magenta. Purple, blue. Nope. Man, so many fishes that was copies. Red, blue. Pink, purple. Red, blue. Oh, this is should be here. Wait. At least it is red. Man, I really should get the signs. Red, blue. Magenta cyan. Yellow, black. Orange, blue. Man, this was not a good day. Magenta, blue. Orange, purple. White, purple. Red. Gray and green. Gray and green. Oh, nice. Go away.
is this now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17. So 8. 1308. Light blue cyan. White, purple. Pink, yellow. Magenta, pink. Oh dear. Black, light gray. Red, light gray. Where can we find it? Clayfish, gray cyan, gray, light gray, pink, black, then we have brown, yellow, brown, yellow, light gray, pink. What's that in this one? Light gray. No, gray was there. Light gray. Light gray, pink. Oh, fucking light blue. Here, light gray. Light gray, pink, light gray, pink. Flopper, the loose salmon fish, purple, orange. Red cyan. Oh, fuck me, cyan. There we have it. Red, pink. Blue, purple. Wait, what? Okay, sure. That's... Man. Could get missed one fish. Let's see, cob. Red, blue. Wait, what? Here we have red and then blue. Orange, blue. Yep. So instead of how many is it now? 4, 9, 13, 16. So instead of 70 minus, it's just 16. That sounds nice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So 1,300. No. 309 minus 16. Yes. And now we go and just place it down. And then we can end it. Light blue cyan, white purple, pink yellow, magenta pink, black light gray, red light gray, green cyan, gray light gray, pink black, brown yellow, light gray pink, red pink, red cyan, purple orange, red blue, blue orange. I don't know, it didn't look. Okay. Oh yeah, it's in car and F1 week. You can say weekend, but it's the week now than it's the weekend. And hey, we'll see if some news about Alpine will happen. Will Esteban Ocon? Where will Esteban Ocon go, and who will go to Alpine? Hopefully Mick Schumacher. That we really hope for. Let's see. $1,000. Let's see, we need to change that. I'll write it down. $309, right? Yeah, 1,309. Okay. Yeah. We are. Oh, many is it? 2,700. 1,350. We're soon halfway there. And then we have just the rest to get. But yeah.